Happy week of Thanksgiving, my friends. This is Thad Riley and episode number 312 of the Thadcast. Are you ready for it? Are you ready for all the fun and the festivities? Or are you just like, hey, I'm in this spot where I'm just going to be kind of alone this year, or it's going to be very different this year? First of all, for everyone out there who is spending their first Thanksgiving alone, I don't know if there's a lot of folks like that. I just want you to know that I prayed for you all. I know that this is probably really a weird and different and difficult time for you, especially to be spaced out from the people that you care about, or from the couples who can't see their grandkids, or whatever the situations might be. This isn't a normal Thanksgiving for anyone. So maybe this episode that we're doing today isn't exactly what you'll be facing as far as Thanksgiving goes, but I hope it connects to you on a deeper level of life. And true story, when I was a kid, I used to be part of this really fun youth group at my church, okay? And we used to have a blast. We used to just hang out, play basketball, watch movies, do the whole thing that whatever kids back then did before they had smartphones, right? Before they had all the pranks on YouTube that people did. Well, we did some pranks too. And we enjoyed quite a bit of them. One of my favorites that was rather humorous was wrapping someone's car in saran wrap. First of all, you're guaranteed pretty much no damage. There would be no damage to the car. But also it would be just a pain for that person to deal with. The unfortunate side is if you got somebody who's late for work and then they show up and they get fired, this doesn't enter the mind when you're 16 years old. In fact, not much really does. And at least for me, it did. So I would just think about that type of thing. And have you ever seen these people on TV? They're like on some game show, some wild game show, and they get wrapped up in saran wrap, right? And then somebody will put like Vaseline all over the saran wrap. So now it's like a double layer of impossible of getting this person out, and it's gross, and it's all this. And then sometimes like they'll blow feathers on. I think this is like a scene from Home Alone. They'll shoot feathers at the person, and now they're covered in feathers and Vaseline and saran wrap. And it's just all this stuff is clinging to you, and it's like this thing that we're going to talk about today. This thing called pride. And in most normal Thanksgiving years or holiday years or Christmas years, we would be able maybe to really hit home with this. And so I don't know, but I have suspicions. So we're going to go with it. We're going to go with it because this pride word means something. And it means something so much that if you look up the word pride in the scriptures, you will be overwhelmed. You'll be overwhelmed with the amount of verses that come out of it. But before we get to that, I just wanted to tell you that for me, it kind of manifests itself in a different way. It's really in those moments in relationships with people where someone has done something offensive to me specifically, or someone has, I guess what I would say would be to devalue me in some way. And I was actually thinking about it. There were 4 people in the past week that had done something to me in a way that really caused me to feel devalued, and that really bothered me. And I prayed for them. I added them to that prayer list of folks that I struggle with, right? And it's kind of small right now, so it was good to get back into it, and to know that you're living the life. And isn't that how we know that we're living life? When people have problems with us, or when we have issues with people. Hermits don't have these problems. And sometimes that's why we have to leave, pull the scales off of us and get out of the house. And even in these days, some of y'all got to be home by 10, but I don't know what's going on with that, but not in New Hampshire. But we got to get out, and we got to get involved, and we got to get engaged in people's lives. But it's moments like this that cause us to recoil and come back into the safe spot of us and the chosen few, right? Like my kids can say all kinds of BS to me, all kinds of crap. And it's just kind of like, yeah, you're my kid. Yeah, I got to deal with you. You got to deal with me, which is way worse, okay? So we'll be all right. But it's these outsiders, the people that we don't know, sometimes. And sometimes it can be the people that we do know, sometimes the people that we're close to. But for me in my life, at least in my marriage with the blessed woman I'm the one who's blessed, for the record. But this wonderful lady that I married, it's kind of a different gig there. It's nice, it's pleasant, it's peaceful. But this pride thing, no bueno. It's not good at all. It's not good for Thad. It's definitely not good for Thad. It causes Thad to do other things, to think about other things, about how to, usually it's revolving around the situation, so how to either one-up that person, right? To end up as the supposed winner or whatever, to get what I want. A lot of times it's getting what I want, whether it's respect or getting somebody to kind of fall in line the way they're supposed to, or whatever it might be. Don't treat me this way. Don't do this to me. And it's hard. It's hard because I'm a person of controlled emotions. So I think this has to do with being in retail for a couple of decades, but people can get upset at me, people can say things, and I remain resolutely calm most of the time. The only time I will come back is if I'm in somewhat control, and I will speak maybe my truth to them in that moment without being over the top, right? And if I'm unable to handle myself, then I won't. I really experienced this probably about 1.5 years ago with this guy. And this guy he'd follow me around it. He was where I worked. And there was a thing one day where I had to start teaching my cycle class, and there's a little thing, he was in the room, and I have like all these people coming in, and it wasn't anything that intense, I thought, and I was just preparing, and one thing led to another, and he got very upset at me for kind of what would be the end of his workout, right? But I have a time, I have to do my thing, and so he was upset, and I didn't realize the ramifications of how mad he was, and this guy would walk by me, and he would whisper, douchebag, literally. He would whisper this in my ear. Like he would come up behind me when I'm getting ready to teach a class out of nowhere. Like I wouldn't even see this guy. And he would whisper this to me, like when I was just walking through the gym. And sometimes I would see him, and I always ignored him. And that was it. One day I was talking to this lady, and he just walks up and says it to me, and I'm done. I've had it. But I was so mad, I was shaking. I was like, literally, like my fingers were like going. And I was like, this isn't your moment to resolve this alone. So I went down and I got my boss, and we had a conversation. We got things worked out as best we could. And he stopped calling me that name, and I didn't see him around as much, and I don't see him around really anymore. And that was it. And so I shook hands with the man, and I offered my hand first and tried to resolve it the best I could. Conflict is tough. Conflict is tough for me. I don't sit well on it. And I think you all probably experience this sometimes as well. Maybe it causes you to react in a bad way. But when I'm really good with Jesus, when I know who my King is and where all of my value needs to be placed, I have an understanding and compassion for those that may not know him, that don't have the joy and peace that comes from sitting here on Christmas morning and thinking, yeah, these gifts, but there is so much more to this day. And we celebrate Jesus' birth, his arrival to save us from all of our sins and to create a path to God for all of eternity. And so these people who devalue us, who say these things, so some of them do know Jesus, right? And it's like, hey, when did Christians get perfect, right? And so for me with that, it's a little bit of a different story. We can approach it a little bit, maybe a little bit more directly at times, but we can also live in this space of grace. I'm not saying to not resolve your problems, because it certainly helped with somebody who was using abusive language towards me and being, I don't think I was necessarily intimidated, but being intimidating verbally would be a good way to go. Because I'm not in that sphere. I don't walk up behind people and call them a douchebag. I don't call them names like that. That's not where I want to be. I want to be in a space of peace with folks. When I'm out in public and when I see you, I want to be able to say hi. I used to give you all a hug, but we don't do that because of the Rona. So, we live in a different world today, and we embrace it as it is. But people are still people, and people are still hurtful and ugly and difficult and troublesome. But there's this verse, a couple of them here. And it says, because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. A lot of people talk about what they're entitled to, what they deserve, and all that tomfoolery. And I'm here to tell you, my friends, that it's good to have a self-confidence about you. It's good to be very, very joyful about the beautiful gifts that God has given you. But when you think too highly of yourself, and the problem that I have, apparently, that I need to work on every single day, right, is when people say rude things and they devalue us, who do we go back to? Do we close in and become the hermit crab? All closed in, you can't get to me. Do we get angry at them and snap back and use the same language that they use? Do we become manipulative and controlling and we twirl the end hairs of our mustache, coming up with some plan, some game to get them? Do we go to gossip about this person? Or do we treat them with disdain and respect in our minds and hearts and separate ourselves from them? No, we've been called to something else. We've been called to a better existence than any of this, of what I speak of right now. We are called to be these ambassadors of the light of Jesus, this light that is unfailing, that never goes out at any point in our world today. And that's what we are, even when we feel so devalued and hurt or frustrated. And no matter what it is, we still have the light of Jesus inside of us. And we know that because the scriptures tell us, and you know what else they tell us? They said, pride ends in humiliation, while humility brings honor. So when people are shooting those arrows at your heart, or they're making a comment, and I'm saying this happens at the Thanksgiving table sometimes, right? On Thanksgiving Day, when you're in the same room with a bunch of folks for a long period of time. And I think we need to remember in these moments that from the Depeche Mode song, people are people, right? People are people. And you're a people too, and I'm a people too. And we say these things and we do these things, and we wish we could have them back. We wish we could have them back. And sometimes people are toxic and they're difficult, they're narcissistic, they have a real problem, they're negative. I'm an optimistic guy, so I don't always connect with that so well. I think that's why it bothers me so much. But I am telling you right now, if all of our self-worth is placed into Jesus, what are we worried about? And these folks are usually hurting so bad that make these comments and do these things to us. And they might have chipped away at us. They might even feel good about it. But my dear friends, God has such good plans for you and I. Can we just sit in that? Can we embrace those plans? Can we just say, okay, this is a good thing. And I'm so grateful for the love of Jesus in my heart. And now I'm going to be an ambassador of that to these people who specifically hurt me. And I'm going to pray for them. And I'm going to realize that the thing that might bring them to Jesus is a peaceful heart for me, some love for me, right now some grace. And sometimes it's just a mistake someone made. And they don't mean to, they just did something and they were anxious, they were scared, they felt controlled by maybe even somebody else. Maybe it has nothing to do with you. So often, it has nothing to do with you. And that's why we can't think too much of ourselves. Either way, it hurts us, right? Too little or too much, right? My encouragement to you today, my friends, is to sit in that space of peace between you and God, first and foremost. Get your heart right before Jesus. Get your value placed and centered in Him. My next encouragement is to realize that the world is hurting and sinful and needs us to be a light to them and to the world around us. And then my third is to pray about your pride, to confess that sin to the Lord, because it clings like that saran wrap. It's tough and it's tight. And you put Vaseline on, it makes it worse. And it gets all over you. Get it off you. Don't let it cling. Say goodbye to pride. Say hello to humility. And do it at the feet of Jesus. Because He loves you just as you are and not as you should be. Because, my friends, in this life here, none of us is ever going to be as we should be. Well, that's it. Thank you for joining me today for episode 312 of the Thadcast. As always, I want to just ask you, if you haven't joined our Facebook group online, please join up with us there today. That would be awesome. Just type in the Thadcast. It pops up. A couple questions about not harassing people on the social media, and you're in. Also, if you could share this with a friend, that's great. Those ratings and reviews from iTunes always help me out as well. So I hope you are blessed today. I pray for you folks as soon as we're done. So I'll be praying for you. And and until next time, my dear friends, may you be blessed.